When my parents vanished with my college fund, they yelled, "You're too dumb to waste money on." But my teacher said, "Prove them wrong." Years later, they sat in the crowd, silent, as I took the stage. It's a strange thing to look out into a crowd and see the very people who told you you'd never amount to anything sitting in stiff silence while the world applauds you. I never thought I'd have that moment, not really. Not when I was sitting on my mattress on the floor at 18, staring at the bank statement with a zero balance and no explanation. Not when my father's voice cracked like a whip from the other room, yelling, "You're too damn dumb to waste money on," while my mother didn't even turn her head. I felt like a ghost in my own life back then. Disposable. Forgettable. And for years, I believed them. Maybe I was nothing. But Mr. Hauser didn't think so. He was the only adult who looked me in the eye and told me something different. Just 5 words. "Prove them wrong, Marcus." That was it. But it lit a fire I didn't know I had. I didn't realize how badly I wanted to show them, all of them, that I was worth something. I never forgot the way my mom rolled her eyes at my drawings, the way my dad would laugh when I tried to explain how engines worked. I didn't forget a damn thing. And now, sitting on the edge of that stage, watching their faces turn pale under the spotlight. Well, let's just say I didn't smile. Not yet. I wasn't done. My name is Marcus Caldwell, and I'm the kid people expected nothing from. That was pretty much my whole identity growing up in Marion, Ohio. A slow, awkward boy with scratched glasses, quiet tendencies, and a stutter I didn't shake until I was 16. In school, I wasn't popular or even noticeable. My teachers saw me as the kid who could try harder, and my parents, well, let's just say they didn't see me at all unless I'd done something wrong. My father, Harold, was a factory worker. He drank Miller Lite and liked the Browns. He believed in hard work and hated excuses. My mother, Trina, spent her days criticizing everything and everyone. My older brother, Raymond, was the golden boy, full-ride football scholarship. My sister, Delia, married rich at 20 and bought herself a little house outside Columbus. And then there was me, the third wheel in a family of strong personalities. I was told more than once, by my mother no less, that I was an accident. I didn't fight it. I just stayed quiet, spent most of my time sketching things in my notebooks. Cars, mostly. Engines I'd never touched but wanted to. Machines that looked more alive than I felt. My grandfather, my mom's dad, was the only person who ever treated me like I mattered. He used to bring me rusted radios and let me tear them apart on his porch. He'd nod when I explained how I thought the circuits worked. When he passed away the summer before I started high school, I was devastated. But he'd left me something, a college fund. Nothing extravagant, $22,000 in a savings account. It was meant for trade school or community college. He'd made sure to specify that in his will. I didn't touch that money for 4 years. I wanted to prove myself first. I graduated high school, barely, but with plans. I'd filled out forms for a local automotive technology program. I was finally going to do something that felt real. I walked into the bank 2 weeks before I was set to enroll, asked to check the balance. It was empty. $0. Every penny is gone. I remember just standing there, the teller staring at me like I'd asked her to explain gravity. She even double-checked the account number. Still zero. I went home, walked into the house calmly, and asked my parents if they knew anything. My dad didn't even look up from the recliner. "We used it." "What?" My voice cracked. "You heard me. It's gone." "Gone? For what?" My mom snorted from the kitchen. "Bills. Repairs. Life. You weren't supposed to." My dad slammed his beer down on the side table. "You want to be mad? Be mad at yourself for thinking we'd blow 20 grand on a dummy like you. You're too damn dumb to waste money on." That sentence, it carved itself into me. I left the house that night. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't be in that house. Not after that. For a week, I floated. Crashed on my friend Darius's couch. Ate peanut butter sandwiches. Didn't talk. And that's when Mr. Hauser found me. He'd been my shop teacher for 2 years. Retired Navy. Gruff as hell. He sat next to me at the library one night, where I'd gone just to get out of the rain. "You okay?" he asked. I didn't answer. He handed me a pack of peanut M&Ms. Heard about the fund. Silence. Then, "Prove them wrong." That was all he said. That sentence lived inside my chest like a ticking clock. I took the first job I could find, changing oil at Buck's Auto. It paid next to nothing, but Buck was too tired to be picky, and I was hungry to work. I started off sweeping the floors. A week later, I was handling tools. A month after that, I was doing full diagnostics under Buck's squinting supervision. I didn't sleep much. I worked from 8 to 6, then spent my nights studying every car manual I could get my hands on. I couldn't afford the internet, so I used the library's Wi-Fi. I took online certifications, slowly, one at a time, whenever I could save up enough to afford them. I was learning the science behind what I had always just sketched. By the time I turned 21, I had developed a bit of a reputation in Marion. The kid who can fix anything. People came to Buck's just to ask for me, but gave me a raise and the corner stall. I moved into a rented room above the shop. It was tiny and hot in the summer, freezing in the winter, but it was mine. The fire inside me only grew stronger. I never forgot what my parents said. Every bolt I tightened felt like defiance. Every problem I solved felt like a middle finger to their words. And then the Mustang came. A 1965 fastback, rusted through, barely recognizable. Belonged to a man named Lesnick, a widower in his 70s who said, "This car belonged to my late son. I want to bring it back. Can you do that?" I hesitated. I'd never done a full restoration, but something in me clicked. "Yes," I said. He paid in advance. That car changed everything. The project took 5 months. I documented every step, photographed, wrote notes, cataloged each part. When I finished, Lesnick broke down in tears. His grandson posted the before and after pictures on Reddit. The post blew up. Suddenly, people were calling from Columbus, then Cleveland. One guy from Cincinnati offered to tow in a Corvette if I could do the same work. I opened Caldwell Customs the following year in a small garage I leased on the edge of town. I hired 2 guys, then 3, then an office assistant. My client list tripled. I saved every cent, lived small, drove the same busted Civic I'd had since I was 18. And then, at 27, I bought a house. Not just any house. The same one I used to clean gutters for as a teen. The same one my mother said I'd never afford even if I cleaned toilets for 30 years. I paid in cash. Then I got a call I didn't expect. Professor Jameson from OSU. He'd heard about my work through one of his colleagues, Lesnick's cousin, apparently. "We're hosting a statewide engineering symposium," he said. "We'd like you to be a keynote speaker, to talk about custom mechanical design." I nearly dropped the phone. The day of the symposium, I stood behind the red velvet curtain of the Marion Palace Theater, my name on the program, the mic warm in my palm. My palms were sweating. I was about to walk on stage and speak to 100 people, engineers, students, journalists. Then I peeked out and saw them. Front row, 3 seats in. My parents. Trina in her tired church coat. Harold with his arms crossed, a scowl carved into his face. Delia beside them, clutching her designer purse like a lifeline. My heart dropped, but I didn't flinch. I stepped out, swallowed hard, and said, "My name is Marcus Caldwell. I didn't go to college. I didn't have that option, but I did have something else. Fire. And I'd like to tell you how it forged me. My name is Marcus Caldwell. I didn't go to college. I didn't have that option, but I did have something else. Fire. And I'd like to tell you how it forged me." The stage lights were hot. Too hot. I could feel the sweat collecting beneath my collar, the weight of the audience settling across my shoulders like an old coat I hadn't worn in years. But I didn't let it choke me. I looked at the crowd, not for their approval, but to ground myself. A few dozen strangers. A few familiar faces. And 3 faces I hadn't seen in nearly 6 years. I avoided their eyes. "I want to talk today about failure," I said, my voice steadier now. "Not the kind you read about in textbooks or study as a theoretical problem. I want to talk about the kind of failure you wake up to every day because the people who raised you told you that's all you'd ever be." There was a rustle in the audience. I could see someone in the back nodding slowly. A few leaned forward. I wasn't the smart kid. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't the one who made my parents proud. I was the kid who sat in silence, who broke things just to understand how they worked. The kid who couldn't read fast, who flunked algebra twice. And when I was finally given a shot, when my grandfather left me money to try for something different, that was taken, too. I paused. My throat caught. I didn't want it to, but it did. The room was quiet. You could have heard my heart pounding. I found out my college fund had been emptied 2 weeks before I was supposed to enroll. $22,000. Gone. I was told it wasn't worth wasting on someone like me. I didn't fight back. I left home that night and didn't return. I still couldn't look at them. I felt them, though. Felt the way my mother probably straightened in her seat. Felt the discomfort radiating from my father like heat off a rusted engine. Good. I started from zero. No money. No degree. Just time, my hands, and a borrowed socket wrench. I learned by failing, by cutting my knuckles open, by burning out clutches and miswiring batteries and spending entire nights with my face buried in manuals. The slideshow behind me advanced automatically. I hadn't planned to say much about the images, but the photos told their own story. My first garage, tools arranged like a rookie's, oil-stained jeans folded over a busted stool, a 1992 Camry engine splayed open like a cadaver. That was the beginning, I said. That's what starting over looked like for me. After my presentation, I walked off the stage and into the hallway behind the curtains. My chest aches, not from nerves anymore, but from the pressure I hadn't realized I'd been holding for almost a decade. I had planned a lot of that speech, rehearsed it late at night, pacing back and forth across the floor of my shop. But I hadn't planned to say so much about my parents, about what happened, about what was stolen. But it felt necessary. I wasn't trying to shame them, not exactly. I just wanted the truth to sit in the air for once. I stayed backstage while the next speaker went on. I didn't want to be out there, not yet. I could already imagine the questions, the congratulations, the LinkedIn invitations. But mostly, I didn't want to see their faces. I didn't want to know if they clapped. I didn't want to know if they cried, or worse, sat through it smugly, still convinced they were right all along. I stayed hidden for 10 more minutes before slipping into a side hallway. "Marcus," a voice said behind me. I didn't need to turn. I knew it. My mother. I didn't speak. She came into view, her heels clicking softly on the tile. She wore too much perfume. The same scent she used when she was going to Sunday service, or to court when Delia had custody hearings. A scent that used to make me feel small. "You really said all that up there?" she asked. Her voice was flat. No warmth. No apology. I nodded once. She looked me up and down like she was trying to decide if I was the same person or not. "We didn't think you'd." "Well, we didn't know you were doing all that." "You didn't want to know?" I said, still not quite facing her. She took a breath, ready to defend herself. "We had bills." "Your father, you don't owe me an explanation," I said. "Not anymore." She stopped talking. That, in itself, was a miracle. "Is that all?" I asked. She hesitated. "I just thought we could talk after this." I turned to face her. Her face looked older. Not just from time, but from where? Maybe even guilt. But I didn't reach for it. "I don't know what you thought this was," I said quietly. "But I didn't do this for you." She blinked. "I'm not here for reconciliation or your approval. I got up there because someone once told me I had to prove you wrong. And I did." She didn't move. She just stood there. Finally, she opened her mouth. "Your father wants to say something too." "I'm not interested," I said. She looked like she might cry, but even then, I felt nothing. No pity. Not satisfied. Just nothing. I walked past her, my footsteps echoing louder than hers ever could. I didn't see them for the rest of the event. I spent the afternoon speaking to students, answering questions, and shaking hands. I took pictures next to my Mustang project and was invited to 2 more speaking engagements. I smiled for the camera. But underneath it all, I was still somewhere back in that hallway, staring at the ghost of the woman who raised me like a burden. When I got home that night, back to the house I had once only dreamed of owning, I sat in the driveway for a long time. The porch light was on. The engine was off. The silence wrapped around me like an old friend. I thought about calling Mr. Hauser. Then I remembered he'd passed a year earlier. Instead, I walked inside, sat at my workbench, and picked up a carburetor I'd been rebuilding. I disassembled it slowly, carefully, piece by piece. There was something comforting about it, breaking things down just to understand them better. There was so much more I wanted to say. To them, to the audience, to myself. But not yet. Not tonight. The engine could wait. So could the ending. I didn't sleep that night. Even though the house was quiet and the air was still, my mind ran laps. I kept replaying everything. The applause, the looks on their faces, my mother's sudden interest after nearly a decade of silence. It all churned inside me like oil in a loose engine, too loud to ignore, too hot to touch. The thing is, I didn't hate them anymore. That part surprised me. I thought I'd want to scream at them, humiliate them in front of that crowd, make them feel as small as they once made me. But when I finally stood above them, metaphorically and literally, I didn't feel rage. I felt pity. And something else, too. Closure. But that didn't mean I was done. Because in all that time I'd built my life up from nothing, they had gone on as if none of it had happened. They never apologized. Never offered to make it right. and I realized that the most powerful thing I could do wasn't yelling or forgiving. It was drawing the line and letting them feel what it was like to be shut out. 2 weeks after the symposium, a letter came in the mail. It was handwritten, in my father's cramped, scratchy script. Marcus, we didn't come to cause trouble. We were invited by someone, don't know who, but we were proud of you. Your mother cried afterward. We were surprised at how well you turned out, and maybe we didn't handle things right back then. Maybe you were smarter than we gave you credit for. Either way, we hope we can talk. Maybe come by for dinner sometime. Dad, I stared at the letter for a long time. The phrase, how well you turned out, burned in my chest. Like I was in a lucky accident. As if none of it had been a deliberate climb from the pit they had thrown me into. I didn't reply. Instead, I spoke to my lawyer. You see, when my grandfather left that college fund, he did it out of love. He believed in me. And my parents robbed me of that chance. Not just financially, but emotionally. They stole not only the money, but my faith in myself. It took me years to get it back. And yet, I couldn't sue them. Legally, the account had been set up in their names, with a note of intent, but no legally binding structure. That's why the bank couldn't do anything when I first found out the money was gone. But now I had money. Now I have a very good lawyer. And now I had something my parents didn't expect, leverage. We filed a civil suit, not to bankrupt them, but to make a point. For breach of fiduciary duty and misappropriation of intended funds. It wasn't criminal, and I didn't seek the full amount. I sought $22,000. Exactly what they took. Word got around town fast. In Marion, Ohio, court papers moved slower than gossip. People started whispering at church, at the grocery store, at the VFW hall where my dad played poker on Thursdays. For the first time in their lives, they were the ones being judged, not for being loud or strict or working class, but for being selfish. The court date was set for early spring. They didn't show up. Instead, their lawyer, some distant cousin of my uncle's, contacted mine with a settlement offer. They'd pay me the full $22,000. No apology, just the money. I took it, not because I needed the money anymore, I didn't, but because it was symbolic. It was an acknowledgement, whether they admitted it or not, that they had stolen something from me, and now they were being forced to give it back. It was never about revenge. It was about respect, about correcting the record, about standing tall in the very town where I had once been invisible. That spring, I made an announcement on my shop's social media page. Caldwell Custom Scholarship Fund every year will award $5,000 to one student in Marion County pursuing a trade school education. Preference will be given to students with learning differences or who've overcome hardship. The post went viral locally. Dozens of emails poured in. Parents, teachers, even kids who'd followed my work online. One came from a senior at my old high school, a kid with dyslexia, just like me. He wrote, "Everyone says I'm slow, but I love working on engines. My counselor told me about your story. It's the first time I think maybe I'm not dumb." I invited him to the shop. He became our first intern. A month later, I saw my mother in line at the pharmacy. She looked tired, smaller than I remembered. She caught my eye, walked over. "We paid the settlement," she said softly. "Are you happy now?" I looked at her, long and hard. "I'm at peace," I said. "That's better than being happy." She opened her mouth, closed it. Then she said, "Your father's not well." "I'm sorry to hear that," I replied. "Really, I hope he finds peace too." She tried to say more, but I had nothing else to give. I didn't hate her. I didn't love her. She was just a woman I used to know. I nodded and walked out. That summer, we hosted our first scholarship night at Caldwell Customs. We cleared the garage, set up folding chairs, and rented a small sound system. The kid we picked, Logan, gave a short, nervous speech about how he used to get laughed at in school. Now he was enrolled in one of the top automotive programs in the state. I stood beside him, proud in a way I couldn't explain. And as I looked out into the crowd, full of students, teachers, and old neighbors, I thought about the moment I once imagined as a boy, when I'd stand on a stage, tell the truth, and look into my parents' faces. That moment had come, but I no longer needed it, because the real victory was becoming the man they said I'd never be.